Salute of the Jugger. That is, Salute of the Jugger, not Salute of the Juggler, or even Salute of the Juggalo, is a pretty unique post-apocalyptic sports movie, and one of the most intense sports movies ever made, by every metric. So basically, it's about a roving group of violent athletes, led by Rutger Hauer, who compete in a weird contact sport, simply called the game, which seems to be a bit of a hybrid of football, ice hockey, lacrosse, and mixed martial arts. And the whole thing's basically an allegory of sorts about the decline of ancient Rome, about the gladiator games and all that sort of thing. It's a pretty unique one in the annals of post-apocalyptic cinema, because it's essentially like a sports movie with most of the usual trappings of those films. It's a lot more violent than something like The Whole Nine Yards or Days of Thunder or something like that, of course. But the violence is fairly believable because it is more about maiming the competition than it is about murder. So in that respect, it is a bit different to your average Roman gladiator games. So this one was a co-production between the US and Australia, and I think you'll spot a few familiar Ozploitation faces like Hugh Keys-Byrne, who played the toe cutter in Mad Max, and Immortan Joe in Fury Road. And there's also the big bald guy out of Howling 3, the marsupials. The world building in this one, the costumes and set design all feels convincing, authentic, and very lived in, even down to things like the body armour. So like all the best speculative fiction or sci-fi, we get just enough of the familiar to make it all feel pretty real. Things like tyre tread, repurposed as sports helmets, and so on and so forth. Everything looks gritty and grimy. And as I said, this is basically an ancient Rome allegory, so it'd make a pretty good double bill with Ridley Scott's Gladiator. Actually, scratch that. It'd make it even better double bill with Lucio Fulci's The New Gladiators. So, Salute of the Jugger is chock full of action and atmosphere. You can almost taste the blood, the mud and the dust in this one. It's all very, all feels very authentic, very real, very lived in, very convincing. And as I said, the fact that it doesn't go too over the top, it is all about maiming one's opponents rather than killing them. Because let's face it, in a real situation, it'd get a bit absurd if half the league was dying every week. Half the, whatever the sports league is in these post-apocalyptic worlds. So they do take the correct approach there. Very obscure movie that kind of fell between the cracks. I guess at the time people weren't ready or unwilling to entertain a post-apocalyptic sports movie. So it was probably quite a hard sell back when it was made. But as is always the case with most truly original movies, it's built up a steady cult following in the years and decades preceding, or that followed. And this one stars, of course, Rutger Hauer from Blade Runner and Flesh and Blood and Wanted Dead or Alive, Blind Fury, one of the unsung action heroes and villains of the 80s and 90s. Also stars Joan Chen, who some of you probably remember from Twin Peaks, I guess, as possibly her most memorable roles or era. And she hasn't done a lot in a lot of years. But aside from that, the rest of the cast, aside from a few Ozploitation luminaries, are mainly just good solid character actors. Well, I guess they were hired more for their physicality than their acting prowess, but nevertheless it works. So that is Salute of the Jugger. Quite unique in being one of the more plausible post-apocalyptic sports movies I know you've got things like Rollerball and Death Race 2000, but those are more, I guess you'd say, more exaggerated, more comic book type post-apocalyptic sports movies, whereas everything in this is played completely straight, completely real, completely gritty, and it is quite unique in that regard. So if you have any thoughts on Salute of the Jugger, as I said, not to be confused with Salute of the Juggler or Salute of the Juggalo, let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know what your favourite post-apocalyptic sports movie is. There are quite a few when you do stop and think about it. And I hope you're enjoying the content here on the channel. As always, to keep up with everything going on, please like, share and subscribe. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time. Take it easy.